What's good, everybody? So the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remaster slash remake came out yesterday. It was kind of a ninja drop, so to speak. Shadow dropped it to an extent. They did do a small presentation before actually launching it, but it didn't get really like a mass marketing campaign, which is kind of crazy as to how good it's doing, even without getting the word out to the extent that you generally see with a project of this size. But I do think it's important too, because there's been a lot of like online culture debate around certain aspects of this game. Maybe not necessarily this one in particular, but I do think it's important really to touch on both sides. Now, this is going to be a bit of a nuanced take, which I realize this is the internet. Nuance isn't really what we do here, but this is probably going to piss off both sides to an extent. A lot of people might think I'm more of a anti-woke individual if they look at some of my prior content. I try to tend to think of myself as a nuanced individual in these regards. So I'm going to probably piss off everybody in this video, but here we go. A lot of the anti-woke creators right now I see are addressing the change in the character creation of switching from man and woman or male and female to body type A, body type B as being very woke. And to those folks, I would sit here and say, pick your damn battles. All right. If you look at, like, listen, I get it. I get why people are annoyed by it. But at the end of the day, there's been a certain level of tolerance to politics in games to a certain extent. I mean, if you go back to the 7th generation, you can think of like same-sex romances in the Mass Effect trilogy and a lot of different games from that era. So there's always been a level of tolerance to this type of thing. It's only when that, I guess, political sway within these development studios got large enough that it tried to make its way into the narrative overtly that it really started to bug people. And so, yeah, I get it. People are irritated about, hey, it says body type A versus body type B, but just pick your battles, because at a certain extent, you can't make everything an issue that you're going to, consider the linchpin. It seems like there's such a demand to sort of meet the anti-woke market that everything becomes a target. And truthfully, I don't think it necessarily helps your cause, or at least maybe you don't necessarily care if it helps your cause. Maybe you're just, farming engagement, which that's fine if that's what you do. But at the end of the day, I think if you want to see games be less quote unquote woke, you do have to realize that it's not going to be a total transformation, right? To return back to like 7th gen when things were put in there, but they really didn't matter to the end consumer. I think that's where the majority of gamers would really focus on being there. Now, that may not necessarily play well on the internet, because the internet is the home of the culture war. But I think if you really pulled gamers who have a problem with a lot of the portrayals in these games, I think a lot of them would like to just focus on the entertainment value. And if they could get to a place where, yeah, you might have something in the menus that you have to deal with, but after that, the rest of the game isn't a problem, I think a lot of gamers would be happy with that, that eventuality, with that outcome. The other thing, and this is probably the more important thing that I want to talk about, and this is going to piss off the other side of the aisle, but yeah, so be it. That's just what you have to do sometimes to be true to yourself. We have to talk about games like South of Midnight, games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, who have done poor numbers on Steam. And the defense for those games a lot of times is these games are on Game Pass. So of course they didn't do good sales numbers, because all of their numbers are done on Game Pass. Assassin's Creed is more of a console franchise. Of course it didn't do well on Steam, because the majority of people play on console. Now listen, I'm not going to sit here and say there's absolutely no validity to those claims. There is. But at the end of the day, we can look at this product. It is on Game Pass, and it's still doing massive numbers on Steam, which means it's making massive sales. And the point is, if there is interest, you are going to see it reflected across the board. If a game is doing piss poor numbers on Steam, it's not doing great engagement for Game Pass. There is no game that people aren't buying, yet they're so interested to play that they're running out to get a Game Pass subscription. They're either interested or they're not. And really, you can go online and you can discredit the Steam numbers all you want. But truth be told, the Steam numbers still matter. They matter very much because they gauge the interest of the title. And we can see that with the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remake. Okay, we can see that there is a lot of interest in this title across the board. It is doing really good numbers. And it is still on Game Pass. You can still go buy a month of Game Pass and play this with a very low barrier of entry, low cost of entry. But the fact of the matter is when there's massive interest in a game, its numbers are gonna be reflected across the board. If a game like South of Midnight is doing piss poor numbers on Steam, it's doing piss poor numbers on Game Pass, all right? You can't sugarcoat that and expect people to take your position seriously because you're not being serious or honest with yourself. So again, culture debate, be whatever. If you are on the side of trying to defend these games, I know that it's not easy to look at piss poor Steam numbers and go, well, I guess the game failed. But if you want people to take you seriously ever, you sort of need to be honest with yourself, and you certainly need to be honest because you can't debate somebody and present your position if people know you're lying to yourself. I think the other one, AC Shadows. Now, AC Shadows, there will be some defense of it, and I don't think AC Shadows is necessarily as cratered to the degree that a lot of people would like to believe that it has. I think there is some validity to the claim that it is more of a console-based franchise. Although I would say there are a lot of factors here that would indicate that it should be moving in more of a positive direction on PC. You have the entire back catalog available across multiple different PC platforms. This is releasing day and date, which I understand previous entries have not done, but this is releasing day and date on PC with AC Shadows. And I will buy that, yes, there are probably still people that play it more on console, but those numbers are not going to be as drastic as what you think because the entire industry and the entire consumer base has made a PC shift and those games are all available there. So, and before we get any further, I know there was a report coming out that said that AC Shadows, I believe, had like the second highest grossing revenue on a game this year, but at the time, that put it in between what I would assume is Monster Hunter Wilds and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Which Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has sold a couple million units, granted I think at a lower price point than AC Shadows, but if you look at the actual revenue that game probably generated, it still doesn't necessarily, that's just providing basically a baseline for what AC Shadows cleared, and that baseline would not put it in a profitable realm. And we don't know how much over that baseline of what Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did that they are. But all we know based off of being the second highest grossing game of the year is it's probably still losing money at that price point. Anyways, guys, I'm sure there's going to be so many people pissed off at me watching this because whether you consider yourself anti-woke or pro-woke or whatever the case may be, I feel like the situation surrounding this game online just kind of exposes all sides in this matter. It shows that we really don't have nuanced takes online, and maybe it's not a good faith debate going on online, but I feel like that's a disservice to gamers because you're really not talking about meeting their needs. You're talking about, you know, essentially pitting yourself against somebody for engagement. I don't think that really serves anybody. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this, you know, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and we will catch you on the next one. Until then, guys, get awesome.